Hey everybody, how's it? Aloha, this is Geebz here from the Decomposer Lounge with my very first interview. And, why not start with a subject matter that I'm really super familiar with doing reactions. So I have for us here, Bryan from Critical Reactions. Hey Bryan, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic.
Good. Thanks for taking the time out and coming on here, my very first podcast interview, I guess, if you want to
Of
call it.
course, my honor, obviously.
Oh, no, no,
You're
no, no, no. I have deep respect for what you do as a reactor. Now, for those of you who don't know of Bryan, he has a channel called Critical Reactions, and may I say they are critical. And not in the sense of depth in different ways in listening to the music and how he defines what he does, what you define that you do. And but then there's also times where you just also what I really am like, all right, cool. You share things that you go, well, I'm not too sure if So I really like the overall, energy of what you, Bryan, would for those of you, that link will be down below. First of all, let me say that first. The link to his channel will be down below. Bryan, before we get to the world of reactions and what we do per se, um, tell me a little bit about yourself in the music abstract. Were you what was your first instrument? Well, first of all, do you play an instrument? If you do, what was it, and when did you start?
Yeah, so I picked up the trumpet about age 15 in middle school, and I took that through my entire schooling process. Ended up playing it through university as well,
Oh.
and also picked up some other instruments along the way, as most musicians tend to do, grabbing a keyboard and electric bass.
And the decision for the trumpet, how did that come about? Were you influenced by like musicians or something, or was it the last instrument in the corner that you had to pick from band? I mean, I'm sorry, I just got to ask that way. So, kind of, how did you come up with the trumpet?
No, it was if I remember correctly, because we're talking like 17 years ago. Like memory gets a bit fuzzy that right. um. Anyways, I remember like they had the band professor had or teacher whatever had mouthpieces in different stations, and you would go try it out and see if you liked the mouthpiece. I couldn't produce a sound on anything except the trumpet mouthpiece. It was destiny.
Well, so in other words, you're when you walked in for the opportunity and stuff, because back before there was electricity, when I went to school, we actually had great music programs in the 60s and the 70s in public schools. Double basses, violins, bassoons, clarinets, oboes, everything, you name it, jazz band and the whole thing. It was a very robust point of education for students at that time. Um, but when you're sitting there, you're trying mouthpieces, was that, because you were just really uh, felt like something about the wind instruments or the reed instruments or the brass instruments drew you in that direction?
Gotcha. Actually, I did not have any intention of playing music at all. I didn't like it. I remember playing a recorder
Wow.
in like first grade,
The
and I
recorder.
was like, yeah, and
I
I was like,
remember.
why do we have to learn this? Why are we in music class? I'm never gonna need this in my life. And my mom made me take band in sixth grade as an elective, and I was like, this is dumb. I hated it. I went home crying that day. I was like, I don't want to do this, mom. I gotta change classes. You just imagine this 15-year-old kid just crying. And no, I just something I stuck with it. She made me stick with it, and I'm really glad. I'm so happy she made me do that.
Yeah, do you send mom cards plenty of times going, love you, thank you for the music?
Not really cards, but I do tell her when I can. And I show her. I'm like, hey, I made this new song, and she's like, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, I'm proud you made me do it.
What a great story, though. I mean, sometimes there is that thing. I kind of emulate a little bit of that, only because I was, raised in a very musical family. But my desire was I just wanted to surf and girls and whatever, But, there was always an instrument in the corner, and my dad would say, play, play, play. I'm like, I don't want to. Piano lessons. Oh, gosh, classical guitar lessons. 3 years of that. What? Drums then came in and I felt a little more at ease with that, and especially during the 70s, when in the prog rock era, we were really, in front of us were put great drummers, from Rush to Zeppelin and on and on and on. So then at least I was like, oh, 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 I got that. So when did you have that moment like, oh, 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 this was kind of fun? Whereabouts in that trajectory have you playing trumpet did you have that moment?
I'm gonna have to say it's probably second year of playing trumpet. It was that thing that I did. It was the elective I took that was pretty easy, easy A, and it was fun. It wasn't bad.
Easy A, yeah. I'm gonna take wood shop and I'm gonna get an easy A. Just got to keep my
So
GPA there.
so seventh grade though I took jazz, and I think that's when my mind really opened up to music and what it could be. I don't know if it was the soloing. I don't know if it was just the more. It's just a smaller group too. We did big band. So we had four trombone, four trumpet, four sax, and then our rhythm
Oh,
section,
wow.
and that's just so much more intimate than this huge, 40, 60 piece uh, concert band. I don't know if it was that. I don't know if it's the solos. I don't know if it's just the vibe of it. I don't know, but something about jazz really struck me, and that's when I was like, yeah, I could do this for a long time. I need
That's
this to be a
killer.
part of my life.
That's great. What now at that point when
Mhm.
it started becoming part of like, oh man, I'm digging this. It's becoming a visceral feeling in here to want to play. I'm taking it that's when you spent more time listening to musicians and stuff and starting to get influenced. Who were some of those musicians?
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be a pretty typical list for trumpeters, but Miles Davis, Wynton Marsalis, Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, those guys just really brought their own styles and new directions to music that than I had heard at the time, both in jazz and classical styles, and they just really kind of showed me different paths that I could go down, and even showed me I could make my own path as a performer, and really put my own spin on the instrument.
That's that's insane. That kind of trajectory of like going, no, no, I don't want to play. I don't want to play. That all of a sudden you've slipped into the jazz band aspect of high school, and of course, obviously, is the influences that you had just had mentioned, who are absolutely powerful influence. Those influences are more powerful, probably across the board too. I mean, as a guitar player, I listen to a lot of brass players, saxophone players, trumpet players, clarinet players and stuff, for phrasing, the legato ways of playing and stuff like that. That's very unique. I get a lot of my thinking from that. What a great opportunity though to have jazz band in school, and you're right about that intimacy and that intensity of having a smaller closed band, and really be able to hear your parts and stuff instead of blend in with 600 other trumpet players and just kind of work your way
Exactly.
through it. It's like you have a lot more of a predominant role in that brass section. Um, so you're out of high school. Did music become the focus of like, I want to study this, I want to go? What was your next step?
Well, my next step was learning how to program in college.
Oh,
Kind of a weird step, yeah. But I
you're
really
talking
wanted to make,
computer programming and stuff, yeah.
yeah, computer program. I really wanted to make video games. Music was fun and I quite enjoyed it, but it wasn't really a strong passion at that point. It was a side thing, and I did play bass in a rock band at the time, and that was my musical outlet. But I really wanted to learn how to program. So I went to university for that and got my associates in science in computer science. And they kind of sapped all the passion out of me for
Hmm.
programming.
How did that happen?
I don't know if it was just the way that they taught or just being closed in and being told what to make, but it never clicked with me. So in my third year, I transitioned over into music composition and theory.
Oh, well, that's cool. Now, okay, well, I can understand though I can understand how the experience would be if the educators are bland and matter of fact and linear about their teaching, and if there isn't like a lot of passion and in that aspect, how it could really kind of zap you or suck the creative energy out of you, because that even has
Yeah,
to be creative. Even though, from what I understand, I don't know too much about programming. I mean, enough to make me dangerous, but enough to mess it all up. That you still need to use that creative skill set, be it numbers and codes or however that process is. There's still a creative, like, gee, I wonder if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, kind of a
yeah.
compository. Is that a word?
Composite.
Composite, yeah, kind of a process. So now
Yeah,
you
I
make this
actually
bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I kind of approach music the same way where I have a tool set and it's about trying to use that tool set to create what I want. I actually view programming and music creation very similarly, which I think is kind of odd. One's kind of left brain, one's kind of right brain, but it works for me.
Well, that's the uniqueness of that process is that I think I'm not a neurologist or know how things work, but I think the discussion between the two sides of the brain at time could yield some pretty unique pieces of work, be it music or the programming thing. So now we're going to get into the real meat and potatoes here. It sounds like so you now decided to turn your focus to theory and other studies in music. How as you went into that, how did you feel? Did you feel like oh, I'm home, or how was that process for you?
I felt kind of like a fraud. Yeah,
What?
yeah, kind of like what is that? Imposter syndrome, where you're like you're here, but you look at everyone else and their skill set, and you're like, I don't belong here. This is not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, any day now I'm gonna get found. But I took theory courses, I took the composition courses, and I didn't have enough funding to actually push through and get the bachelor's. So I just like I cut all of my you know the humanities courses and electives, and I was just like, all of my funding needs to go to this. And I was like, two courses a semester, theory, composition, just burning through it. And when I came out of it, though, I felt very whole, very complete, like something I knew I was missing, but didn't know what I needed to fill the hole with. And yeah, it was music knowledge and the ability to expand into other realms outside of rock, which I enjoyed playing rock with my band before we disbanded, but it's limiting, I feel.
Well, so now, okay, you brought up something I'm sorry I didn't ask. The actual outside of the school performance. So you were in a band. What style? So I take it you were playing trumpet in a band, right?
Bass, actually. I think I did I not I might not have mentioned that. Yeah, I picked up the
No,
bass
that's cool beans. I had no idea.
Yeah, I picked up the bass for this project, and we did a few shows. We had like 8 or 9 songs. We started to write our new album, and then life just happened. We all got out of college, and we started to go our own ways, and we had to
Sure.
pay bills.
Oh, that.
Oh yeah, the whole adulting thing.
Adulting does not get in the way growing up.
One
So
hundred
well,
percent.
what was this? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just said 100%. I agree. It gets
Yeah.
in the way of all the fun stuff.
It is, and that's just something I think every single one of us. My world is very closed in as a composer, but with this channel, I've done so much homework on listening to other people's interviews and stuff, and the transitions people have gone through. Um, None of them have been silver spooned, if you know what I'm saying. Oh yeah, I did this. Dad paid for this. Everything was good. No, they all went through these hardcore challenges in their lives to save enough money to get into the studio, play at pizza shops, or rainy festivals or whatever it is. There's a lot of work. There's a ton of sacrifice, I believe, in these interviews and stuff. And I guess that comes in, you know, different forms as we go through our project. Yeah. So now you're playing bass. I had no idea. So just briefly touching on the bass because I goober a lot on the bass with my reactions, and even though I consider myself on the scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 3. Now, when I do that, I'm not banging myself for it, but when I do that, I'm thinking of Jaco Pastorius, I'm thinking of bass players like that, and I'm going, yeah, I'm like going, you know, and so the style of bass in this in the band that you were playing, what was the style that you were playing?
Very rock oriented. It's kind of laying down the rhythmic component that the drums laying down and following the chord progression. The bassist that I actually replaced in the group mostly just played the root note of the chord, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not just doom 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 doom. Yeah. So like I rewrote some of the bass parts, moved some, had some moving melodies, but I was never really strong. I picked up the bass for the band, so I was learning how to play it while also being part of a band. So they weren't exceptionally amazing parts. Like you, I'd probably put myself in about a 2 or 3 for the instrument. But yeah, very rock oriented, going for hard hitting, lots of emphasis on attack.
Sounds like what bands would you say that you were kind of?
Oh, let's see. We were mostly like an emo pop rock kind of group. So, AFI was big at the time, Avenged Sevenfold, not
Oh, cool.
really emo, but that kind of area of music though was our big influence.
And how long did you do that for?
I guess the better part of 2 years.
So now we've covered, all the way through schooling. You went, you did your theory because because now we're going to kind of fade into the reaction aspect of it because I noticed that you throw out, a lot of really fun. And what I like about it, it's palatable theory. Do you
Yes.
know what I mean? It's not. I I did study theory for 6 months before I got unbelievably like I can't do this. This is not. I'm not. I'm. It's just me. Theory is an amazing thing. When I listen to folks like yourself or Beato or Adam Neely and these other guys in these channels talk theory, I can connect with it because I'm a composer. And oh, geez, I've been doing that. And, I had no idea that was a blah, 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 blah with a da, da, da. So it's a really super interesting component of the music world. And I notice you throw a little bit of that in there. And I also notice you throw a little bit of orchestral dynamic um, phrases in there when you're talking about things that might, most people say, wow, that volume went up. Well, what's the word for that in orchestra? He's got it. What at the end of your university time until the beginning of your channel, what was filling that space? Was how many years was that?
Oh man. I'd have to do some math here. It's like 7 to 10 at least, maybe even a little more than that.
So at that time, just life was going on. Were you starting to write and compose your own stuff? Did you have like a DAW and something and you started to work on your own stuff?
Yeah, I created some stuff for commission, most of it local. I have a probably a ton of music out there that's existing in PowerPoint files somewhere as background music.
Wow, you're a stock composer, stock music composer.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. Like I said, it was commissioned, so I wrote it for a person. They put it in their
Yeah, but you got paid, right?
PowerPoint. Yes, of course.
Gee, all right. Working composer. I like that. Well, that's great.
And
No, I'm
well,
sorry.
yeah.
I flagged myself. I was going to say something, but continue.
No, that's kind of it. After that, I just sort of floundered a bit trying to start up my own stuff. I wrote a classical six track album that
Wow.
had like a whole 2 views by the end of 5 years.
Well, did you put it up on Spotify or YouTube?
It's on Bandcamp. I probably should have
Bandcamp.
went streaming, but I don't know it would have really made that big of a difference. I was such a small fry at the time.
Well, I'm going to have to listen to it. Would you mind if I put that link down below as well?
Um, yeah, go for it. Just
It's like,
anyone who
yeah.
listens,
Say it again.
just
Say it again.
remember anyone who listens to it, remember it's from at least the Balius 2013. So it doesn't sound great, but the musical ideas are solid.
Well, that's good. And so I'm going to put a link down below for people to check that out as well. So now let's get into your reaction channel. I should have done a little more homework, but uh, is the date that you opened the channel different than the date that you started doing reactions? Like for instance, my channel, I started in like 2007, just when YouTube was really grinding its gears, but I only used it as like, oh, that's okay. Who knows what's going to happen here? I'm going to throw some of my old music here to some really bad pictures. And then all of a sudden, a year and a half ago, I said, oh, I'll just use this channel. I'll try a reaction. Similar to you, or did you just say, I'm going to do reactions, let's do it?
It definitely was a channel designed for reactions, but I don't think I actually put any videos up for a few months after I made the channel. But yes, it was designed dedicated for reactions at the time.
And so what year was your first I mean, was it a couple of years you've
Yeah,
been
it
doing this?
was November, I think, of 2019.
Oh, super cool. So right before the whole COVID, everybody
Yeah,
stay at home
I
thing.
lucked in, I guess that's one way to put it. Lucked into all the quarantine.
Yeah, that I have to admit, there's no two ways about it. That even though my first reaction started November 2020, that there's no two ways about it. A lot of the steam that I got, behind a lot of the reactions was because people were still at home, and so obviously when everybody started going to work in May and April or April and May of 2021, you can see the views change. But anyhow, I'm sorry. So how did you go about choosing your first song? Was it because you didn't have any followers yet or anything? I take it you just said, well, I'm going to start on, get my footprint in this direction.
Honestly, I went and I think I clicked on like the music button in YouTube and I just grabbed the top track, the most popular thing on YouTube at the moment, which was a Selena Gomez track. And I wish I could go back to it. I probably want to one of these days. I was very harsh on it.
Really, you beat it up.
Yeah, I my style definitely shifted a bit from those first couple of months to where I am now, and my style that I'm doing these days. But I was very that pretentious classical composer vibe, and I really had to grow
Wow.
out of that.
Wow. Oh, you're one of those, huh? Okay. Or at least you were.
I
Now, did you
was,
make
yeah,
now
I was.
so as we move forward, did you make that change because you were getting really negative response, or did you see just a better way where you could apply your knowledge into something that would benefit more than just be, um, what did you call it? A classical snob critique, or something of that nature?
Yeah, it's very snobbish style. Um, it was a little bit of a self-reflection, and just because I felt I could do better by actually looking at everything on its own footing. I realized that a lot of the popular, more mainstream music that I enjoy outside of classical and jazz is also very simple and could easily be looked down upon through classical lens. And I realized maybe that's not the best way to go about talking about music.
Yeah, there's obviously going to be some kind of transitions that I I kind of can share with you in the same way where none of the stuff that I do. Some people go, "Don't you ever say anything shitty about anybody?" And my thing is, well, I could, but that's not the energy. Being a father and a grandfather and a children's entertainer and stuff like that, my energy is always to lift. And if there is some stuff that I hear, I just am not gonna. I'm gonna find the pearls inside every track, and even though there might be something where I was going in the back of my mind, going, "Yeah, that's a little chase on the rhythm going on there. That's a little," but it's not. It doesn't. That's not my jam, But it's interesting to hear that you went in on it, being kind of snobby, snotty jazz classical musician, and then you kind of decided to open up, your scope of understanding, or not understanding. That's the word I'm looking for. Your scope of listening beyond what you started.
Right.
So as you're starting to go through this process now, you're starting to get a couple of subscribers. More subscribers are showing up and stuff. You're getting some more comments and stuff. Um, at what point did the comments and the suggestions start shaping your channel?
Real early on. I started in November and the US closed down in March. So probably about that area, 5 months
Really?
afterward, saw a huge spike in viewership and commenters. And that was definitely the point where I was like, okay, I need to start taking requests this way and see if I can organize any of this. And yeah, that was certainly the point where I stopped sort of handpicking, what I wanted to do and starting to shape the future of the channel based on the community, which took me in a very rock and metal oriented path.
And so as you were going through this process, I take it that you started to amass quite a list of suggestions.
So at one point, I decided the best thing I could do because I was spending an hour a day combing through comments for suggestions and putting them in a spreadsheet. I said, you know what? I'll open the spreadsheet up. I had a public Google document you could go in and just list the band that you wanted, and it's sitting at 1,400 songs right now. Or sorry, 1,400 bands,
Jeez.
multiple songs per band. So
So
it
fourteen
is.
hundred different named bands, and then all the tracks that are involved in it. Like if they did Between the Buried and Me, there's 4 or 5 suggestions, and oh man, that's just yeah. I obviously the same thing for me. It's do you find yourself sometimes frustrated that you can't get to all the music you'd like to?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. There's, something I've said recently is art deserves to be enjoyed in bountiful plenty. I am very happy
Well
that
said.
there is so much music out there to explore, but it is a bit disheartening to realize I'm not going to get to check it all out, and that the speed I'm getting through it is maybe not as fast as I'd like to, but it's how the cookie crumbles. It's how things are working out.
Yeah, that's something I had to learn early on because I did not, it never, the universe and me worked really weird. And like, I would have never thought 7 years ago I would be a ventriloquist and entertaining children's in hospital. Just something weird happened. I got a hold of a dinosaur puppet. It was just kind of more of a joke kind of a thing. And then it was a ventriloquist puppet. I learned to do this. Somebody sees it and goes, "Hey, you know what? You suck, but the puppet looks great. You'll probably get better. Would you like to entertain kids?" And then once I realized what that was, like the energy took over and I learned to do it. And kind of like this reaction channel, um, I would have never in a million years thought of doing a reaction until my granddaughter and my daughter said, my daughter and my granddaughter had kind of said, "Hey, Abba, there's these things called reactions. You teach us about music. You got to try it." So of course, the legend of Geebz reaction started with my cell phone reaction of Sober. And all right, well, I'll listen to this song. I remember the band Tool from way back in the day, and so I said, okay, well, I'll hit it. Now, I will say that I did see, when they mentioned reaction channels, I started looking up what reaction channels were so I can get an idea. Oh, I see. They're listening to music. They put the video here, and they're just talking about it. Some people talk over, some people stop. Okay, and I just did it, and it just, well, here I am having just a great time. But I am kind of a people pleaser by nature, so sometimes it just gets really difficult where I can't get anywhere near all the suggestions, and I try to reach as far as I can, but it gets difficult. And like you said, though, that's how the cookie crumbles. I try the best that I can, and to get that out there. Now, obviously, you and I have two different styles of breaking it down. I have to say, I stand in complete awe of your ability to really pull apart these tracks. Like you listen to something and then there's another 30 minutes plus of breakdowns that you're just, what is it with, like, do you have that skill set of memory? I mean, I can barely remember what I said 2 minutes ago. What's
So
that process like?
the fun thing is that I can't remember a conversation I had 2 minutes ago. Music just works for me, and I really probably just have to thank my middle school teacher, Russ Weaver. If somehow you're watching this, thank you so much. Uh, I think it was like once a week or twice a week, he would just drill into us music understanding. In symphonic band class, we would listen to music and we would have to tell what era the music came from: Renaissance,
Mm.
Baroque, Gregorian chants, modern classical. And in jazz, we had named that tune. And we would have to like hear a couple of notes and like, what song is that? And we'd be like, oh, that's Take the A Train, and just really drilled in this intense critical listening to music and understanding the nitty gritty of it. And I guess that just stuck with me. And my brain found ways to sort of shorthand ideas where I can kind of recall a phrase and then it just expands into all the elements of it. So when I'm listening to music, it's more like I don't hear every individual instrument for memory. I'll hear it in the moment, but I'll pack it into an idea, like this band, or like this concept, or like this other song I've heard. And so when I go to recall it later, I'm like, oh, it was that one idea, and that idea expands into other concepts that are just kind of packaged into it.
That's incredible. I guess there is in training. Isn't there like a course called orchestral listening?
Yeah, actually, orchestral listening is how I listen to music. It's basically, instead of taking the song in as a whole, you hone in on one specific instrument. You bounce around to all the different instruments of the section. It is very different from casual listening, where you just kind of engage with the entire thing as a singular work of art. It's kind of like, looking at a painting, and instead of seeing the painting, you observe the brush strokes or the type of media being used.
Hence critical reaction.
Exactly.
Now, I, 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 that, you can listen to music in that context. I mean, see, I'm not I'm not that guy. Another wonderful reactor that I love to listen to every once in a while is that Doug Halvering, or the Daily Doug. He's the
Daily
guy that
Doug, yeah.
listens to stuff and he goes, "Oh, that's in the key of, oh, that was that a diminished fifth?" I mean, he could, that stuff is beyond my capacity as a musician and composer. So I can't do that. I don't have that, you know. But I understand that, like you and Doug, and perhaps Adam as well. Perhaps there's a lot of the people that come and hang out with you guys are leaning a lot more into that. Do you think?
Yeah, possibly. And also just to go back and clarify a little bit, uh, Dave, or not Dave, Doug's hearing, the way that he can pick out notes and chords, I don't have that. I would love to. When I hear a chord, I can hear its emotion, and I can kind of tie that back to maybe something I've paired in the past. Like, for instance, the Phrygian mode, I kind of associate with the Middle East. So when I hear
Right.
that kind of style, I'm like, oh, that's Phrygian. But if you say, hey, what is this chord? I'm not going to be able to tell you it's a B flat with a Ray 7. That my ears just don't work that way. So I can pick out a lot of really nitty gritty details in music, but exact notes and chord names, that is not my strength. And I do kind of envy Doug's ability to do that.
Well, I think that's when you and I have to go over to Rick Beato's site and get that listening. He's got a course on that, and it sounds so intriguing, but it never I was never pulled in hard enough to go down that part of the music world. And like I say, though it is tremendous, and that and musicology and all that, I love to be the person who's watching those individuals talk story about that. You know, and for me that's great because I still find myself in a youthful pivot, you know, being 60 years old and just released a piece of music on my channel, which was like, can't believe I did that. I still, when I watch these other reactors, yourself, Doug, Adam, well, Adam doesn't do a lot of reactions. He's a lot more talking about the theory and very unique things. And Rick and stuff like that. I like to still be that like kid going, oh man, this is so cool. I mean, I know I do this, but wow, I had no idea that's the history of it. And then the other thing is too, is also understanding for myself is that is Western music theory, but the journey that I have on another channel, which is the world reaction, well, anyhow, blah, blah, blah. There is the Eastern, you know, the other music theory and stuff that is just as fascinating to me. You know, so I feel like I'm like, oh, good, I get to learn more stuff and everything. But I stay within my scope when I say the pure listener. And when I try to do it, I try to fuse in a lot of the years as an engineer and mixing and really just expand on what I'm hearing so that people who know nothing about theory, nothing about chord changes, and then of course trying to not spoil it for them, you know, to demystify too much. You know, you see how I do what I do. You know, I don't necessarily dive into the progressions and stuff, and so you know, it's a very unique balance. Sometimes I get some pretty funny comments from composers going, "What kind of composer are you? You didn't even talk about the fla with the and I'm like going, "All right, wait a second." I give them a link in their comment going, "This is why," because I actually did a video on why I don't do theory and why I do it this way. Do you get you know, in the world of the internet, as I like to say, this is a new experience for me as far as engaging on the social media platforms in this capacity. Um, Obviously, a lot of our comments are very supportive and everything like that. But do you get those kind of comments too, where because and maybe because of the fact you might be reaching out a little more and being a little more critical, um, are do the I don't want to say negative comments, but do those types of comments impact sometimes where you might go in your channel?
Not at all. I do receive them, and one of my favorite ones said more like composer. I thought it was real witty. It gave me a chuckle. So I do get comments like that from time to time, but I don't let them steer my channel or anything like that. You know, I do dig into the music, and sometimes I do have criticisms to talk about. I'm not afraid to say that a song bounced off of me or that a specific section just didn't work, and maybe that I would do something else if I would have been in charge of the song. Not implying it would make it better, but a different version I might have enjoyed a little more. And because of that, I'm not always giving glowing reviews. I do get a lot of comments, but I don't let them shape the way I do the channel. I don't remove my opinion from it. I feel like a lot of the people who show up are expecting and appreciative that I'm not just another person who just praises everything that reaches my ears.
That's a good way to point it, to put it. I didn't know how to handle it. I fumbled around. You know, it was all really new. And I think because of my empathic nature and stuff like that, and, you know, um, it didn't, I have to admit, the comments did influence the direction of where I was going because I had no idea where I was going when I started. So I did find myself more into rock and metal. But at the end, I found myself so blown away and so stoked that I did because the level of musicianship in a lot of these prog rock bands and all these bands, that even ones that are like death metal, metalcore, and stuff like that. It's been such an eye-opening experience for me, and it really has exposed me to super super great musicianship and composition outside of the world that I was used to, hovering in my little bubble as a media composer and stuff. So, um, but I did find myself having to open that other channel. But
I have a question for you,
what?
actually. You've been pushed into the realm of rock and metal, and I noticed you released a metal-ish song recently. Was that because of the music you've listened to and you've been reacting to?
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. I was fully influenced by it, but it was really difficult for me in composing that piece because I still wanted to keep the integrity of who and what it is that I was feeling. So instead of writing a piece and saying, hey, and because of the nature of my work as a composer, which, all of my clients say the same thing. Can you make it sound like very rarely, unless it's a movie or something like that, do I get the opportunity to be completely 100% creative, turn it into the director, and they either thumbs up or thumbs down. Music libraries, I get the calls going, I need 3 Lady Gagas, I need 2, Steve Vai's, I need 3 of these style things, and I got, oh, all right. I look it up and listen. Okay, I got it. I was a monkey performer. But this particular track was probably the first one where I said, I'm just going to pull from here. And it's a very unique track, ethereal. There's no drums in it. If you really think about, there's percussion, but there's no drums in it.
Yeah,
But I
just
have
percussion.
metal, with the chugs that I do and a little bit of the lead, but it's very ambient and stuff. So how it was influenced, I'd have to say it's hard to pull. Where did I hear what? But there's no two ways about it. I would not have written this track. I would not have cared. Matter of fact, there would have been dust on my keyboard and on my guitars in between jobs had it not been for this channel. That's just kept me so engaged. So yes, I was influenced, but then when you listen to the track, it's not a typical track that I would even be reacting to per se when you listen to the
Right.
rest of my stuff. So
But the metal, like you said, it's not a particular band or song, but just the idea of the metal has driven a passion and required you to put an aspect of it in your music.
yeah, I always have been a closet metalhead. I think when in the 70s when I was playing drums and I'm listening to, you know, um, all these insane, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, Rush, my goodness, who wasn't influenced as Rush as a young drummer and all that. But just something happened when I got out of high school and I went through a few years of just like, I just want to surf and do whatever I want before I came back in. But as I came back in as a recording engineer. And I still was just doing the music that was coming through the studio at the time. But really, my real influence was Joe Satriani, Surfing with an Alien. I'm sorry, that one. And I was like, oh my God, look at this. And then this track is kind of a fusion of a Latin classical guitar and wow. And then I went to a guy named Mark Bonilla. Nobody ever talks about this guitar player. Mark Bonilla is amazing. And he had something, I think the American Matador came out. Now that was more of a classical fusion metal. And then I was late to the show, but then Steve Vai and then Ingve, these two different styles and all on the speed and stuff. Just go, 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 go. And I got really, and then all of a sudden the universe went, uh, do some music for TV and film and stuff like that, which was mahalo. But then I put my guitars and stuff down and really focused on the business at hand. So only in the last 20 years have I been like picking up my guitar again because of technology, really easy to, call up a plug-in and practice some music and stuff like that I started getting back into it. But I've always loved the hardcore chugging and everything that I'm hearing on the channel. I can't fake it. I can play it, but I can't fake it. And I don't say I can play it like I'm saying I'm a badass guitar player. I'm just saying by virtue of my ability as a composer, somebody says from, a particular extreme game channel, hey, we need a track that goes, oh, okay, but it's not authentic. So for me to be authentic was to release the kind of track that I did. And, that's what it is. And I'm just enjoying this pivot in my life, doing that with no expectations of what's going to happen with the music. And I ain't going on any road. I'm not going and playing anywhere. I'm sitting here on my little beach and I'm just going to go fishing. But at least the opportunity to release, music has been really fun. But yes, fully influenced by the channel. Sure.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that it was who you are, and I think that's really awesome that you incorporated it into your sound instead of just adapting it wholesale. And I think kind of tying that back to me, I've done the same thing. Um, my followers know that for some reason black metal ends up on my channel a lot, and I'm not a big fan of it. But somehow or another, the fast tremolo picking that comes out of it is something I adapted into my work, and it's not very black metal-y, but it's very me, and I love the extra texture it's given some of my songs. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from with that.
I like the way you put that, the textures. And this track that I just released, the metal aspect is really more of a texture, because the principal aspect of it are these ambient ethereal pads that I chose. And then probably the second most prevalent aspect of it is this Middle Eastern, India style percussion section, because there's no drums in the track. I mean, there is some lo-fi loops that are obvious in there, that you can hear them doing their thing. And so they do support the bottom end and the thickness of that percussion, but there's no drums in it. And then so really the guitar is only in a third of the track. I mean, there is some swelling up stuff that I do, some volume, stuff, but I just wanted to write the experience. But yes, just like you said, though, there was a definite additional influence of a lot of that through, the journey and stuff. And just so that we can stay within a palatable time, I've got two more questions I want to ask really quick. One of them I found really interesting. You just got through doing a reaction to Opeth. And in that, you had said, I wrote it down. See, I listened, stand by. You did a little bit about not going in with expectations. And you went through this little bit about how that shapes how you go about listening and reacting to a track. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the analogy I actually used, which I'm going to reuse because I really liked it, was you might be a fan of horror movies and you might be a fan of action movies, but if you're told you're going to go watch Die Hard and you get to the theater and it's swapped out for Last House on the Left, you're going to be a bit bummed out. You were expecting something else. So, I try to temper my expectations when I listen to music, but based on the fact that I typically theme my weeks, so this week is weeks that are songs that have big shifts from one style to the next, I'm going to be expecting a big stylistic change. And I have heard Opeth in the past, so some of those expectations of what kind of style I think they are is going to be brought in it as well, especially things that I specifically enjoyed about it. And I try to push those off, like, don't come with me, throw the baggage out the window. But, it does. And if that aspect that I really liked isn't present in this new song, it's going to be a bit of a bummer for me. And it's going to color my experience with the track, which, if it's a casual listening, it's really not that bad. Just throw the CD back in a second time, you listen to it again, you know what you're in store for. But on a reaction, you only get one shot at it, and it's going to color some of my analysis as well. So I really try to temper my expectations, but they do color my experience in ways that I'm not always happy with, but it's just a part of the experience, I suppose.
Yeah, that's those are all very good points. I like your example, that you used in that. For myself, I don't. I click and go. I learned, like, I listen like clowncore, and I know you just did clowncore too. And how is that? I mean, that is one of those amazing things where you just go, okay, well, I think I know what I'm going to get. And then all of a sudden, you're just, you got to stop and say, are they doing this as a joke? But they're so dang talented as a musician. And then you find out there's another band called Nowhere that some of these guys are still a part of and stuff like that. But just to me, I did one. It's on Patreon right now. I'm going to release it in a little bit. I'll start there and push it over to the main channel, where the guy played with his drop D tuning, if you would. It's like, wait till you see this video. But having no expectations, though, has been really, really super cool. And I think part of the process for me is to be able to sit there and say, I could take it. Let's do it. You know, there are some music that I've listened to and I have kind of, I don't want to say struggled to react to it, but I was taken aback a little bit by, let's just say, maybe lyrical content or something like that. And kind of like, wow, I just don't know what to make of that. But I have a full appreciation of what the power of music does to people, no matter what genre. You know, if
Yeah,
it's part of the
100%.
soundtrack to their life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, music, I mean, like any art, like you said, it's very powerful and people connect with it in different ways. I think it's interesting you said that you don't want to say that you struggled with any specific type of music, but I'm the opposite. I will 100% say that I struggled with a lot of the more extreme metals coming up. And I've kind of gotten an ear for some of them, kind of still dislike many of them.
Yeah.
But I still approach them as unbiased as I can, and my ultimate goal, if nothing else, is to let people who enjoy the music figure out, give them the words, vocabulary to explain why they enjoy it, or if nothing else, for me to take something away from it that I can use in my own music.
Perfect segue, because that's my last question. That was perfect. I swear to God, everybody, I did not telegraph that to him. That was perfect. So my last question is, just like me, I've been emboldened by the channel and I just released something. I'm pretty sure you still write music and you're still doing things. Can we expect anything from you anytime soon? And even if you're just in the experimental process of your compositions, you kind of maybe lay in a little bit of the style of what it might be.
Yeah, so over the past year or so, maybe a little over a year, in my Discord server, we run a composition jam, and I just kind of give prompts.
Oh,
Make
that's
a song
cool.
in 5/4, or make a song that moves between two different ideas, or whatever. Just a very vague prompt, no matter what your skill level is. There's nothing too high level. Make something with a diminished chord that runs into a mixolydian. Like, we're not doing anything like that.
Beep, 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 beep.
Everything's real simple so everybody can participate. And I've been using it as an opportunity to experiment and try new things. And after making 17 songs through that now, I'm ready to start on my next adventure of releasing an album. And the first single off of it, which will probably be the only single, will be ready soon, next week or so.
Wow, I look forward to that. Do you mind if I do a reaction?
Yeah, go for it. 100%.
Yeah, and also I got to thank you for that too. On this other little channel that I had put out a video on Twitter, and it's just as organic chill step as it could be. And I had said, "Hey, anybody want to react to it? That'd be great." And I was thinking people would listen to it and leave a comment, but you took it and you did a reaction. I can't thank you enough. I was sitting there going, I really was like clinched, going, "All right, he's gonna tell me what he thinks here." And I tell you what I liked before we dig out is the fact at the beginning there was something about it that you weren't too sure that you liked, and you were kind of like, and then by the end of it, it just kind of like I was like, where is it? Is he gonna hit me with it? What's he gonna hit me with? What's he gonna hit me with? And it kind of glided into, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or whatever that was. So I just want to say thank you so much for that. So I'm going to return the favor.
Oh, thank you, and you're welcome, of course. And anytime you want me to react to anything else, I'm more than welcome to do it.
I think I have enough nerves and anxiety just releasing stuff. This video that I just released was so everything, all the anxiety embodied in me from when I was a kid had resurfaced because I just wasn't really good with putting stuff out. And rejection's a huge part of our industry. But being rejected as a composer is a little easier because I can fix it. Okay, you don't like that? What is it that you don't want? You want me to remove this? Oh, okay, I see what you do. I could take guidance. When you finish something and you put it out there, this is a whole little different thing. But then also doing the video visually was really intense for me too, because I didn't want to guide anybody too far off into definitively saying this is what it's about, but saying this is what it's about. So it was a trip. But anyhow, listen, I am so grateful that you took the opportunity to come on here and my very first podcast. And I guess everybody, the link will be down below. And let's see what else. Yeah, that'll be about it. Did you freeze on me, Bryan? Oh, there you are. Okay, you came back. I know that we froze up. Technology is wonderful, but sometimes technology can make us pull our hair out. Anyhow, Bryan, listen, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me here on my very first interview podcast thing. Everybody, his links are going to be down below for the Reaction channel as well, Bandcamp, if you want to listen to some of his music and stuff. And Bryan, I can't thank you enough. And I can't thank you enough for not only doing this, but that reaction that you did of mine and everything. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
All right, listen, you take care of yourself. Everybody, thank you for hanging through here. Please go visit Bryan's channel, leave comments down below, obviously, and but go check out Critical Reactions. If you really want to have a major intellectual geek session with music, I say that with love, Bryan.
Oh, I know.
All right, everybody, take care. Aloha.